down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Christy.
Time in American history that there is an all-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle the organizations that have been carrying out these acts of political violence and terrorism. What we have seen, if you look at whether it be going back to the riots that started with Black Lives Matter and all the way through to the Antifa riots, the attacks on ICE officers, the doxing campaigns, and now the political assassinations, these are not lone, isolated events. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well-funded, it is well-planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now. There is an entire system of feeder organizations that provide money, resources, weapons, and when they're attacking ICE officers, they're attacking federal buildings, or they're isolating public officials for harassment, doxing, intimidation, and ultimately attempted assassination. It is all carefully planned, executed, and thought through. It is terrorism on our soil. Because of this executive order, Kash and Pam are going to have the tools they need, working with Scott, to take these organizations apart piece by piece. And the central hub of that effort is going to be the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or JTTF, which sits inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But for those at home who are worried about terrorism in this country, they understand because of President Trump's strength, because of his vision, because of his leadership, we are now going to use the entire force of the federal government to uproot these organizations root and branch. And again, it's only possible because of President Trump and his leadership.
Thank you, Steve. Kash, please.
Yes, as Steve was saying, Mr. President, thanks to your leadership, crime is going downward in a tremendous fashion, and that's what we want for every city in America. And the FBI's premier flagship enterprise, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, are honored to lead this initiative with our partners at Treasury and Homeland Security, because our citizens are being attacked by, as Stephen said, organized violence, and it's being paid for, not by them, by other people. So what we are going to do, combining forces as Scott and I have done in these last few months, is follow the money. People and organizations have collected funds and put them out into the streets of America and organized violence across our country. And thanks to your recognition of this and this executive order and the AG's leadership to lead out and prosecute these individuals, we are properly going to chase them down like the domestic terrorists that they are. And our streets and our communities are going to be safer because the JTTF and the FBI and Treasury and DHS and DOJ are going to combine forces.
New change in how the Trump administration is combating drug smuggling and drug cartels.
Yeah, this just came in within the last few minutes. Scripps News confirming that the White House sent a memo to Congress informing them that the president has designated people involved in drug smuggling, drug cartels as, quote, unlawful combatants, and that the broader drug war is now, quote, an armed conflict. Now, White House officials stressing that this is not necessarily a new policy. It's going back to some of those strikes we saw against boats that were alleged to be involved in drug smuggling activities in the Caribbean last month. This is sort of the legal justification that they have to provide Congress for why they struck. We know of at least 3 strikes that took place, killing everyone on board in those on those boats. But experts on this would say that this is a pretty significant escalation of the president's crackdown on drugs and drug smuggling. Defining the war on drugs as a, quote, armed conflict means that a country can kill enemy fighters even when they pose no imminent threat, detain them indefinitely without trials, and even prosecute them in military courts. So again, you see the statement from the White House here suggesting that this is just the president delivering on his promise to take out cartels and eliminate national security threats. Certainly something that's developing just a few moments ago, so we'll continue to report on it and bring you anything.
Meanwhile, tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela are mounting as the U.S. continues what it's calling a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels. For weeks, the U.S. Navy has been targeting Venezuelan ships it says are carrying drugs into the U.S., with the most recent strike on Saturday. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bandi was asked about the legality of these strikes today.
As I said, this is breaking news. We've kept it quiet for the summer. Operation Summer Heat was a 3-month surge by the FBI with our state and local partners. We started at the end of June, and we just wrapped up at the end of September. And what we did was follow one theme: crushing violent crime, one of this administration's key priorities. And we went into every single field office. We have 55 field offices scattered across the country. And today, we're going to unveil the results of Operation Summer Heat and what law enforcement can do when you let good cops be cops. I think a quick historical analysis is important here. You have to recognize that there was an explosion in violent crime, and it didn't happen in a month or 6 months. It happened over the course of years due to the prior administration's lackadaisical approach against crime, and violent criminals took advantage of that. So the FBI, under my leadership, we came in and said, okay, violent crime's exploding. Everybody knows that. We see that. You can't walk around these cities anymore. People are getting shot. Kids are getting shot. Drugs are killing our youth. We need to do what the FBI is best at and crush violent crime. So we targeted all the major cities in the country. You can't just walk into a city and say, okay, there's 150 law enforcement officers here. Let's go arrest people. You have to build a ground game of intelligence that takes months. That's what we did in Memphis. That's what we did in Chicago. That's what we did in New Orleans. And that's why, at President Trump's direction, we went in quietly months ago into these cities to set phase 01. Now we're going in with the Guard to complete that project. And that's the beauty of operations like Summer Heat. Summer Heat had 8,700 arrests. In 3 months, Summer Heat had 2,281 firearms seized permanently off our streets. 3 months, fentanyl, 421 kilograms. By the way, that's enough to kill over 50 million Americans. 50 million. On the low end, that's a conservative estimate. Lethal doses off that seizure. 45,000 kilograms of cocaine. We conducted operations that led us to 2,000 indictments and 1,400 convictions. And the bulk of that work came from our violent crime and gang forces. I want to highlight that because that was the focus of Summer Heat. 6,500 of this casework came specifically out of that. And here's